Hi everyone, it's your co-host Sam for Bronies UK. I do hope you're all doing well. I hope you had a good Christmas and had a great happy New Year to you all. So, wow, well, we're officially 14 days into 2024 and I realised I haven't really done anything on Bronies UK for a while, so I thought I'm just going to try and start a bit of a video series and hopefully try and stick with it. So, right, we're going to talk about over the course of these next few sort of audio videos, if you will, because I'm not going to do camera, I'm just doing audio for these particular ones. I want to talk about G5. So, obviously, as we all know, G5 has finished, and it's well, I say the Netflix series has finished. Obviously, there's still the YouTube series, like the mini series on YouTube, that's still ongoing, but for the moment, anyway, it has finished. We may or may not be getting a Gen 6, considering of how the bit of a cliffhanger happened so at the end of Gen 5, but for the moment, we have officially ended Gen 5. So, what I want to do, I just want to break a few things down. I want to talk about a few things and generally just discuss my overall thoughts on Gen 5. So, what I want to do today, this video, is going to be about one of the characters. We're going to talk about one of the characters, and then the next time I'm going to talk about other characters. So, I want to start off by talking about Sunny Starscout. So, as we all know, Sunny Starscout was the main character, effectively, of the Gen 5 film. Now, her overall character in Gen 5 film has a fairly good character arc, if you will. Like, her development is there. I mean, you see her as a young filly, then you see her as, like a young adult. We sort of get to see how her character has been developing over the years. She's very much all about uniting, friendship, trying to stop the Earth ponies of Mertan Bay being afraid of Pegasi unicorns and trying to get everyone to be friends. In many ways, Sunny's character starts out very strong. In fact, in the Gen 5 film, Sunny is my favourite character. And ultimately, she has a strong story to begin with. But, sort of after the events of the Gen 5 film, everything just kind of goes downhill a bit for Sunny. And really, I could almost say she gets demoted from being a primary character. I mean, I know with MLP in general, we don't really have a primary character. I mean, like with the main 6, you could argue Twilight was the main character. Effectively, it was sort of her story at the start, but then later on, the main 6 became more central to the story, and it was more like the main 6 characters rather than Twilight and the main 6, if you will. But with Sunny, after the events of the film, she sort of slowly becomes almost irrelevant, to be kind of blunt. She doesn't really hold much in the sway of being an important character. There's so much potential with her character that was just sadly missed and was just never really explored. And one of the main things I want to discuss is Sunny's Alicorn power. I mean, what is that all about? I mean, okay, so we know she gets the Alicorn power when the Unity crystals are united, and she's gifted the power, if you will. But the big question I always feel like I'm asking with Sunny's character is, what exactly is the Alicorn power she has? Because as we know, she only seems to be able to activate it when required. And secondly, there's just no real explanation to how the power works. And it's in a lot of ways, it's a bit of a shame, really, because I always feel like her character had a lot of potential. And we were never really given that potential. As for her, I suppose you could say her potential, let's use that word a lot, for Gen 5 as a whole in the series. I personally believed when the film ended, when she got her Alicorn power, I sort of had this theory for a while that she would be sort of the next generation of Alicorns, that she would unite everybody, and maybe even we'd get her, maybe, if we're lucky, we might get to meet Twilight and Luna and Celestia and Flurry Heart and Cadence. Maybe they'd show up, but of course they don't, apart from in like a message and a flashback. But as for Sunny, her Alicorn power becomes very sort of minor. You know, there's no real explanation, there's no storyline for it. You know, it doesn't get used that often, and when it does, it's only really because circumstances say she has to use the power. But ultimately, the question I generally feel like asking a lot of the time is just what exactly is her power all about? Like, why was she given it? So, you know, upon uniting the Unity crystals, she gains the power, but there's no real change to Sunny herself. I mean, she's still an Earth pony, but you know, she suddenly has the ability to gain the power of an Alicorn. You know, gets wings, gets a horn, and can use magic. But again, it's just not explained, and that is one of the things about Sunny's character that I really feel like sort of weakens her as a character. You know, as I said, Gen 5 film, she's a strong character, but then after that Gen 5 series, she's just not really there as a character. She lacks a lot of development. And one of the things that I generally would love to have seen for her character would have been her Alicorn powers being explored more, because they're never explored, they're just sort of there. It's very much like Gen 5 cutie marks, again, something I do want to talk about, but regarding her power, her Alicorn power, it just feels very ignored, very sort of thrown out, just thrown in there at the end of the film, and then afterwards nobody really knew what they were going to do with it. I mean, I sometimes get the impression that with Sunny, that one of the things they should have done is the Alicorn power should have been the start of a journey for her. Like, her trying to discover more about it, learn more about Alicorns. Obviously, we had the message through Twilight Sparkle, which, you know, just disappears halfway through Gen 5 and is never mentioned again. It just very much feels like they had the potential to really go somewhere with her character, and sadly they just never did. One of the things that they could have done is perhaps they could have gone down the route of having Sunny being an artificial Alicorn, because I suppose in some sense she is, but in others it's more of a case of a result of uniting magic. But ultimately her character just never gets really used properly. I do often wonder just what the plan was for her character as the series progressed. I mean, okay, we know that her character had some limitations, so to speak. You know, we know there was limitations to her character. We know that there were potential plans for her character, but nothing was ever really done. And in many ways, it's a shame. I would love to have seen Sunny progress as a character, and just generally really have seen her Alicorn power grow, because in many ways it never grows, it sort of stays the same, and then also it very rarely gets used. And so you kind of, I always feel like asking myself, what was the plan for her character? I mean, what was she going to evolve into, like a pure Alicorn? Was she going to be the next princess of Equestria? Which again, it feels like that's just something that's never explained either. But we'll stick on topic with Sunny, because to be honest, I don't want to spend the next 6 hours talking about Gen 5 as a whole. I do want to break this little series down. So, just sticking with Sunny, ultimately, as I say, her character goes from being a character that is important, that is the primary character, if you will, to being a character who doesn't really have much in the way of importance. And she should have been an important character, but sadly they just decided, for whatever reason, they just decided not to. If they were stuck with Sunny's Alicorn power as sort of the primary focus of her character, it might well have made things more interesting, and may well have made her a far better developed character. And it's a shame, because in many ways she went from being my favourite character to being kind of like my second favourite character, if you will. I mean, Misty became my favourite character from Gen 5, and I will 100% talk about her in a future video. But as for Sunny, she is sadly very much wasted potential. She just generally doesn't have the potential she should have had. She should have been given a lot more story time, a lot more development, and generally, I think the whole, at least half of the story should have evolved around her. Like, you know, just to quote on it real quickly, Misty became the primary character. It was very much Misty's story was Gen 5, at least the series was. Whereas the film was very much Sunny's story. And then after the film, Sunny does get relegated. In many ways, she just doesn't have that kind of central importance. You know, we're looking at a pony who goes from being an everyday Earth pony to some form of magical induced Alicorn who has power, but it's just never discussed. You know, we never really find out what the Alicorn power really is, how it works, etc., etc. And it's a shame. It really is a shame that we just don't get to see Misty's character develop as a whole. And we should have done. We should have seen her character grow. And as I say, we never do. There was a lot more to her character that should have been discussed. For example, her mother. Like, there's just never any mention of Misty's mother. Obviously, Argyle, her father, he is seen in the G5 film. He's seen in at least one flashback in the G5 series. And ultimately, you know that he was like a historian. He was investigating old Equestria. He was learning about the main six. He was learning about sort of the time when all the unicorns, Pegasi, and Earth ponies were all, you know, links. They were all living together. They weren't separated. And his character, he was given a good start as a character. You know, he definitely taught Misty, should I say. But then, one of the things that's just never, ever, ever talked about is Misty's mother. Like, who was Misty's mother? Like, there's nothing in the lighthouse, as far as I can recall, about her. No pictures. Right? There's plenty of pictures of her dad, but there's no pictures of her mum. And her mum is never, ever discussed. I would just love to know who her mum was, because, again, for all we know, I know I had a running theory for a while that potentially maybe her mother was Twilight, but because one of the things that shows up in sort of Argyle's research study is I think it's like a purple feather, if I'm remembering right, which, you know, heavily implies that could have been from Twilight. So I had this running theory for a while that maybe Twilight was Sunny's mother, and that's how she had the Alicorn power. I mean, or at best, if she wasn't directly related, she may have been a descendant of Twilight. But I had a lot of running theories for Sunny at the start, and unfortunately, none of those theories, you know, ended up being true or even relevant to her character. And it's a shame, really. I think it is just a shame that her character just was not used to its full potential. I know that from a design perspective, she was always intended as an earth pony, and you know, a lot of her earlier designs were very kind of like explorer, sort of almost like inventor as well. You know, that was part of her original concept, but you know, that obviously changed. But as I say, one of the things that I generally wish they had sort of explained better and stuck with was just exactly what the alicorn power was, because in many ways Misty's character, Sunny's character had so much potential, as I say, and it just never got used. It got wasted, sadly. But ultimately, she was I mean, I like her character, but as I said earlier, I feel like she was a much stronger character in the G5 film than compared to how she was in the G5 series. And it's just a shame. And I really wish that we knew more about her character. I just do. There's just not much to really go on outside of what we see in the series. And it's just a shame that we never get to see what she could have accomplished. I mean, and as one of the things I stand with is that she was potentially meant to go on a much bigger journey, you know, go on a bigger quest, maybe learn more about the Unity crystals, learn more about the past. And again, all that just got put to the side, you know. We never learned much about the Unity crystals or sort of what happens sort of in the past, as you say. We get some like really basic explanations when Spike comes into it, which we'll discuss at another video. We'll discuss that. But ultimately, Sunny's character had so much potential and clearly was meant to be used in a bigger way, and it was just never used, and it's a real shame. But yeah, so really, I think if there's anything else I want to talk about the character of Sunny. But I think that's really it. I don't think I can think of much else. I would probably say one of the things that I would love to have seen was perhaps her having magic lessons, you know, practicing magic. I mean, I suppose we could say that magic to a unicorn is instinctual, at least on a basic level. You know, I mean, we know that unicorns can definitely instinctually use certain types of magic. So with Sunny, like the only sort of magic I believe we ever see her use is sort of some kind of, you know, battle spell, if you will, where she's fighting Opaline, you know, blasting magic. And then we definitely know she can project some kind of protective shield, effectively. But I think that's about it. And it would have been interesting to have seen Sunny learn about magic. You know, for example, maybe have Izzy teach her a bit of magic. You know, because Izzy's a unicorn. Or maybe have Sunny discover some old books that talk about magic, and maybe she gets some basic lessons from that. Maybe the books were written by Twilight. You know, that's just an example. The potential for her character, as I keep saying, was just never met. And unfortunately, yeah, I think that's just why her character slipped down the scale for me. You know, she went from being my #1 pony to my second pony, with Misty becoming my favourite pony of the G5 characters. But yeah, that's I think all I have to say about Sunny, because in all honesty, I could be sat here all day talking about her. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on Sunny Starscout of G5. I hope you've enjoyed this little quick video I've put together for her. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll hopefully try and get some more videos uploaded for said characters. But thank you for listening. This has been Sam, co-host of Bronies UK. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.